So I only had a short amount of time to be there, and I'm getting used to the school. And this is actually in a different part of where I was before, because my dad had moved in between the time that I was gone to a different place. So now going back to back to Texas, going back to where I was, I get into the school, and you know, although I'm not in the classes I want, I know that I'm showing up at the latest time. So I only have, there's only so much that I can do. I wasn't able to participate in any sports because it was the end of the year. So then I pretty much, finish. And then I'm pretty sure that I ended up going back for the summer back to California. And I spent the summer spending time with my family, but also because I wanted to go back into playing sports, playing football, they had this summer program that you could go and, you would be able to do like physical training and conditioning and preparation, right? So I spent most of my time in there doing that in that off season after I had already went to that school. And I intended, right, because I had changed, right, I was making certain changes because I just was sick and tired of the same results. But I went back and I was able to participate, and that helped build up not only some confidence within myself because I was able to get stronger, right? But then I remembered, like, as much as I wanted to go back to that school, I ended up leaving and going back to stay with my dad for my 10th grade, sophomore year. So when I get back, I get to actually spend the entire school year there. So, I took the experience from my 9th grade season and being doubted, and then I did some off-season training because that was something that was positive that I could do that kind of kept me, kept me on the way. But when I left, I go back to the school, and I start doing okay. Even though I was participating in sports, I'd ride the bus home. When I did play football, my dad, he never came out to see me play in any of the sports for my sophomore year. And I just thought, okay, that would be fine if he did. But since he didn't, I really just didn't focus on that as much. So I, still wasn't a starter. I still got to participate in some ways. In fact, the experience when I came back was I went out to play, and there was these 3 guys that were redheads that were kind of like me. And one of them, they thought that I looked like them or similar. It was kind of like that Ed Sheeran experience. Like, oh, you kind of look like Ed Sheeran. Like, oh, okay. And so, immediately they made their opinions about me. And because I was naive, they'd ask me a question like, oh, how fast can you run a 40? Well, I really never ran a 40, or I really didn't know. So I just said 4 flat. I don't know how fast I run. I run fast through my eyes, or I feel like I'm running fast. Maybe I'm slow. But as soon as I said that, instant ridicule, instant hate on me. Oh man, you're not that fast. You're not as fast as these people. That's faster than anyone in the NFL. So then they started mocking me, saying, oh, my nickname now is 4 flat. Because you think you could run a 4 flat, we're going to call you 4 flat for the rest of the school year. Right? And, if they wanted to know how fast I ran, I could have just ran. But I met these guys, and I was like, oh, whatever you want to say, that's fine, okay. I still am participating now. I'm, back up. I'm mostly the bench warmer, sitting on the sidelines, watching practice. Different coaches. In fact, the coaches were okay to some extent, right? It was different. I felt different. Like, there's a different environment when you go out to the places, especially after everything that I've already experienced, and I get there and, my grades are okay because I do like subject matter, right? I like learning things. In fact, I learned a lot, but I didn't have to show it off because I knew everyone doubted me. I knew nobody wanted to hear what I had to say. Even if I had asked a smart question being in elementary school, people were like, oh, we thought you were dumb. We thought that you couldn't even speak. Right? And that was the projections that they were putting on me. Like, why would I speak if no one's going to listen to me? What do you want to hear from me if you already think that I can't speak? So I didn't, stand up truly for myself when these people were like, oh, you can't run that fast, or you're not this, or now we're going to ridicule you, now we're going to do all these things. I was like, whatever, I'm just happy that I can meet people in some way. You want to think that, fine, that's okay, right? So throughout the school year, I had to deal with that, which is, hey, it's a compliment. Thank you so much, right? If you want to say whatever I am, thank you, okay. But it got to a certain point where, like, one time in this game, I knew what to do. I knew that I could be someone that could actually make a difference, and so I got called in as wide receiver, and I went out. And on this particular play, I knew that they weren't going to cover me because no one believed in me. You could put me out there, they weren't going to guard me because they didn't even know me. They're like, hey, this guy's not going to do anything. They're not going to go to him, right? So I went out there on the play. And I knew I was wide open. I put my hand out, they threw it to the opposite person, right? I didn't ask the coach what I needed to do. I just went out there and I said, hey, throw it to me. I'm going to catch it. They didn't throw it to me. So then I'm going back to the huddle. And because I didn't know hardly any plays, because no one believed me, no one coached me, no one wanted to make sure that I knew my assignment. So I get out there and I'm looking around and everyone's like, okay, in a way, they're like, we're going to redo the play. And I'm asking, what do I do? What do I do? What am I doing? Because I'm already thinking, oh, they're not going to go to me, even though I kind of knew that I could have had a play, right? So I get out there, line up, the exact same thing happens, except I self-sabotaged myself because I felt like they weren't going to actually throw it to me. So I went out and I ran the wrong route, and they did throw it to my direction. And unfortunately, that is an experience that I am highly disappointed in myself because I had a wide open lane directly for a touchdown. It would have been just kind of like a Hail Mary pass, and I could have got it. But because I lacked confidence, because no one believed in me, because I didn't believe in myself, I self-sabotaged an opportunity that I knew I could have completed for my team, whether we were going to win or not. Because most of the time, the teams that I was on, we would lose every game. We were losers. We weren't winning a game, okay? And even some of the varsity, they weren't winning a game. So I'm like, man, I don't want to keep losing. Eventually, I want to win. We should try to win. But even if we are losing, we should still try to do the best that we can. And so that situation where I self-sabotaged, where I didn't make the right decision, is something that I was like, man, wow. That could have been a huge self-motivator for myself and my confidence that I could have achieved, but I didn't. So then I'm like, man, whew, that wasn't good. And I had to deal with that. And then the season, eventually ended, right? And even the same people that I thought that I could get close to, I played music. I had a guitar, and that was even something that, like, I had begged and 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 begged for my mom to get me a guitar. But what my mom didn't do, she didn't buy me really a guitar. She bought me a guitar kit. So not only could I not just go out and play, well, actually, no, I should say this. She bought me a guitar in between the time before I left. It was a Squier, like a fake Fender Stratocaster. I had it for like 3 days. And I went out of town, and I found out that someone stole it. And it was basically the people that were closest to me. They stole it and they pawned it. They did whatever they did. So I didn't actually have a guitar with me, right? Because the first one was gone. But then, this second one, right? This second one, I got at a later point. But instead of it being a complete guitar, it was a guitar kit. It was something I had to put together, which is fine. I said, oh, well, this is what I have to do? Okay, well, I want to assemble it right now because I want to play, right? And the same thing happened for the way that I was in sports. Was whatever I got to do, I want to participate. I want to play. I want to be someone that can actually perform my task. So, after the football season ended, I go into wrestling. And in wrestling, I actually start to, excel. I actually start to win a match. I start to build confidence in myself. I still lost a couple, right? But because of what I had already went through, I felt like I was like more prepared. I was like, I'm not going to let myself go through the same thing that I went through where I was constantly losing. So I went out there and I won, a few, right? I built up motivation. And my first year was much better, right? This is my sophomore year. So as my sophomore year was there, like, still the same people were there, right? The same people that were making fun of me were still making fun of me throughout the year. In fact, because I was with my father at this time, even though he wouldn't come out for any sports or he wouldn't even come to pick me up, right, after I got out of practice, or let's say I went to a tournament and then I got home and I didn't even have a ride home, my dad wouldn't even come and pick me up. In fact, I had to actually have the wrestling coach. This is a different wrestling coach. This other wrestling coach who was actually Mr. Mellon, and he was a computer science teacher. But he wrestled up in Michigan, and he was the main coach. And, he's very tall, very lengthy, but he was a positive influence, right? He wouldn't deal with my stuff. He would correct me, right? And some of those other coaches that were on the football team, in fact, they would just be more negative. They wouldn't want to encourage me in some way, but they would just want to tell me exactly what I'm doing wrong in some way, but without kind of reinforcing it, or at least that's how I was taking it. So now I have this new coach, and I get out there, and I'm, feeling some type of success in some way. And, throughout that time, me and my dad, we got into a fight. And, I had basically like the same three people that I met that looked like Ed Sheeran, or that they thought that I looked like them. They invited me because I got this other guitar, this kit that I had with me, or whatever. And I get out there and I wasn't the best musician, right? I had to learn tabs. I still couldn't really play any songs. But I went out there and I thought, okay, these are musicians. They want to play. So we went out there and played, and basically I took my amp and my guitar out there. And this was one way that I was able to kind of get out of the fighting stuff that was happening, which I really didn't express to a lot of people at my school. I just kept everything, on the wraps.